Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm joined by a lovely panel, and I'll let them do introductions in a minute. But as we know, the sector is under a fantastic amount of pressure at the moment. There is a lot going on. And our white paper kind of explores some of those challenges today. So do take a look at that. What we want to talk about, though, is the potential that the pressure brings, that spotlight on us as a sector to really deliver those solutions. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the technology, the innovation, and hopefully have a healthy debate and discussion. And you'll have lots of questions, I hope, for the panel after about what we can do. But first I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. So, in the style of Cilla Black, what's your name? Where are you from?
Perfect. My name is Chris Flynn. I'm the Assistant Director for Lambeth Council, which is in the borough in London. We've got 33,000 properties, which is a combination of 23,000 tenanted properties and 10,000 leasehold properties. So my role predominantly is from an income perspective in the management of that.
Afternoon, everybody. I'm Janette Pearce. I'm Group Director of Customer Services for Together Housing Group. About 38,000 properties, serving about 80,000 customers.
I'm Dean Anderson. I'm Exec Director of Customer Service at Settle Group. So we're based in Letchworth, around 11,000 properties.
Thanks, everybody. So we're going to kick off with a couple of questions. Then if you have got any questions, do pop your hand up and ask us anything you like. So first one, customer expectations. We think they're changing potentially over the last kind of 18 months post-pandemic. How has that shift in dynamic around customer expectations, but also the spotlight on tenant satisfaction measures, affected kind of how you make your plans for the future? Have they changed? Have they not changed? Who wants to go first?
Happy to go first, yeah. So I think in terms of the customer expectation and ease of contact, it's not changed per se. A central part of all of our sort of decision making or implementation of any new IT systems is we always look at putting the customer at the heart of that. So there's not really, as I said, not major change in that front, but I guess really one thing that we do consistently is my department manage all of the incoming calls directly from leaseholders and from tenants. And so every single call that comes into the department, we send out a survey. So we survey every single call with every customer, and from that survey, basically, we then have clear data around, obviously, how our performance is, how the customer satisfaction is, did we resolve first time, and in those situations where we have negative feedback, we have a specialist team that actually would call back out every single leaseholder or tenant, ensuring that obviously to kind of have that connection with the tenant and the leaseholder to make sure we resolve it, and that those sort of issues don't happen again. So kind of central really to what we do is always customer satisfaction plays that sort of central point every single time. So no major changes, but just making sure that there's probably if it wasn't at the front end of it, it's biggest priority for us at the moment is the customer satisfaction, both for tenants and leaseholders. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Dean, do you want to go next?
Yeah, no problem. So I'd say expectations haven't changed,
Okay.
but we've not changed quick enough to really realise the needs of people. Whether we like it or not, we are seen in the same way as your Amazons, in the same way as all of these major consumers that our customers use, the same as anybody else, and we are benchmarked against them. And we can say we don't have the financial clout that those kind of organisations have, but it doesn't matter. That's the expectations of customers. The reality is we're in a perfect storm scenario at the minute, in as much as if you go back to 2015 with the rent cuts, we made decisions, most of our organisations, to cut away from the front line. That's biting us now. It's taken 7-8 years to get there, but that's biting us now. We then had COVID. We've not been in properties for best part 2.5 years, so we don't know what's been going on behind closed doors. And now our customers have emerged from it and going, actually, what we expect is you to provide a service to us that we should have always been providing.
Yeah.
But actually, because of decisions we've made for various different reasons, we're now playing catch up.
Yeah, really interesting. Thanks, Steve.
For me, for our organisation, we've been asking customers long before the pandemic how was the best ease of contact for them. So that's not changed at all. I think how people want to be contacted and spoken to, and how the access services is changed a little bit, and we've got to respond to that. So that's nothing new at all from pre-pandemic to what we went through COVID. And then coming out of COVID, customers said, I actually quite like what you've been doing, do more of it, and do make sure that we get it right first time. So for me, it's making sure that if we're asking customers opinions, that we act upon them and keep going and keep making sure that we're actually, if they're saying ease of contact is important, how is that ease of contact, and make sure that we get that response back. Like Chris, we do those response and surveys, and we've got to act upon them.
Yeah, fantastic. I think, Dean, you touched upon kind of the comparisons in terms of kind of customer expectations and consumers there. How do you think the role of technology is affecting the kind of customer experience, either now or for the future?
It's absolutely affecting it, and you know, we need to be on that innovative curve along with any other sector. I think, you know, reality is we've not been that innovative as a sector, in my opinion, and I'm sure people might have different opinions to that, but you know, if you look around here today, there are AI solutions that are resolving problems without any human intervention, and actually that puts us in a really good position to actually go, okay, let's let the AI, let's let the bots deal with the transactional stuff, because where we need our people is those really complex problems that a lot of our customers will face. So I'd rather my people be spending time dealing with the complex and not dealing with the transactional. So having that automation, you know, particularly, you know, if we come on to Mobysoft's automation, actually that low level stuff is all being dealt with. That decreasing balancing stuff is all being dealt with. So my income officers can spend their time with our real problematic customers who've got a range of issues beyond not being able to pay the rent. And that's what I want them to be doing. I want them to be spending their time with the customers and let the technology deal with the transactional stuff.
Well, thanks, Dean. Chris, anything to add from your perspective?
I think, I completely agree with, I do completely agree with Dean. You know, I think from a technology perspective, like for us, you know, that is pivotal to everything that we do going forward. You know, I guess to build out on Dean's point, like an example would be, we've recently overhauled our right to buy process, and that's been, you know, historically, people who are familiar with the right to buy process it's a very elongated process where you get your RTB1 form, normally manual or scanned in or a smart form or whatever. But we've managed to build out that entire end-to-end journey on our resident portal. And what that's allowed to do, the very same as Dean is saying, it's allowed our right to buy staff, our sales staff, instead of processing admin, what it's allowed them to do is actually be able to get a finished application through to them and then be able to actually spend that sort of time on speaking with the customer. So again, that sort of difference between having an easy way of contact, but a way of making a connection with the customer as well. So we now spend time with the customer from transitioning from a tenant to becoming a leaseholder, you know, explaining the pitfalls of what it's like to become a leaseholder, the obligations, the responsibilities around service charges, major works in the future, lease extensions, etc. So there's a more enriched relationship there basically. And what we've seen with that as well is, you know, there was a couple of, I guess I'd say probably a couple of doubters really in terms of like the ability that, you know, that digital change could make. And I guess really we've seen sort of since January, we've seen 85% of our applications on the right to buy process come through completely automated now. So that gives back the officers 85% of that time, which you know is fantastic, because that's a relationship that didn't exist previously. It was very much just an administrative process. So there's massive wins there, and I think, you know, that's how we look at that. You know, with technology, it will be what helps us scale and deliver that more so.
Fantastic.
For us, we've been using automation for quite a long time. I'm talking about probably a decade now. So actually it's really embedded within our organisation, but also it gives an opportunity to look at other aspects, not just around income. We look at everything in terms of automation. So, and we've got some skills in-house now. We took the opportunity to reinvest what we, you know, in terms of that time saving on that transactional piece of work, and that what we don't need to concentrate a lot of effort on, into actually knocking on doors and speaking to customers and widening that customer offer. In addition to that, we've also started to get a bit of an appetite within the organisation to do things slightly differently. So we've got and built something. We've got 2 data scientists now that work within our organisation. We are predicting potential tenancies that failed. We look at top 25 every single month of tenancies that will fail based on the knowledge we've got about a customer. That isn't necessarily about income. It can be about any other thing, whether it's ASB, whether it's about missed gas servicing or missed appointments for repairs. That's been absolutely crucial to get our turnover down to less than just about 6%, 6.1% it is at the moment. That's been really, really important for tenant sustainability. And I think for me, it's about us learning and being brave about them decisions in order to not be scared of automation, not be scared of that IA things. Just not be scared of it and use it to the advantage, really.
Just touching upon that, Janette, I think from our perspective, we work with a lot of different organisations from across the sector, and there's a lot of different kind of data maturity, but there's a lot of kind of risk as well, and sometimes a little bit of scepticism perhaps. What did you guys do? Because all 3 of you have kind of really been early adopters in embracing kind of automation and AI, but what have you done to kind of overcome those risks or persuade others within the business, to really champion this and really kind of do something a little bit different in terms of embracing innovation? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think for me it's about taking staff with you, but also taking customers with you in terms of that journey, to making sure that they understand what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So we know that preferred method of contact is phone, but it's also text, it's also email. We capture all that information, so if we're capturing it, let's do it. So therefore, taking people with you is really important. I also think we've got to fail fast. We have to manage that risk, and have that controlled. If you're doing a project, make sure it's controlled and in that control parameters. And if we fail fast, then we'll fix it and do something different. Yeah. Not saying it's always been perfect, and but you have to take staff, take customers with you, and actually and reap the benefits when you get it right, and celebrate success as well.
Fantastic, Chris.
Yeah. Again, I'd be in complete agreement. I think a key thing there really is about being bold in that space, really. And I think there's not often enough that we really kind of push things. And I think there is a fear factor naturally with change, whether it's digital change or any sort of change. It's basically there's always that fear factor. But I think for us, and one thing we do at Lambeth basically is making sure that we kind of re-emphasize that vision again and again and again. And I think the easiest way of doing that is showing quick wins. Yeah. So there's no need for, obviously, everybody I guess has probably come across ChatGPT in the last couple of months really, and we're all still grappling with the power of that really, and how that could change what we deliver in the future. There's no doubt about that. But I think it doesn't have to be big bang like that. It needs to be, you can look at kind of smaller processes end to end and show how, quite simply just show how it can work. And I think, again, repainting that vision, getting staff on board. It's fine thinking about these things sometimes at a strategic level, but I think operationally it's really about making sure that staff are brought in from the front at the front line, and there's that sort of consistency of communication across the business to make sure everybody's brought into that. I think is really important.
Anything to add from your perspective, Dean?
No, I agree with everything that's been said. I think the march of AI and technology isn't at the sacrifice of people.
Yeah.
And I think that's often the perception is actually, is this going to take my job? Yeah. And it's an absolutely fair and human reaction to stuff.
Absolutely.
When actually, I think you win the hearts and minds of people. You show them the journey. You give them the opportunity to actually see how it will benefit them, rather than it taking the job away. Because let's face it, in my organisation, I'm sure in all of your organisation, our people want to be dealing with people. They want to have the time to be able to spend the time and manage those complex cases. Yeah. They don't want to be dealing with the low level, the transactional stuff, the stuff that they want to be dealing with the people, because that's where the relationships are formed, and that's where we benefit and we sustain those tenancies, because that's what we're here for. We provide homes and we sustain tenancies. That's what our sector does. Yeah. So, just bring them along the journey, convince them it's not about their jobs, it's about supporting them to actually enhance their job.
Yeah, absolutely, and complement kind of what they do. Yeah. And what would you say, what would your team say, if we were asking your teams here, what would they say about the impact that you've made? Because you have introduced AI and automation. What would you think they would say if they were sitting here?
I think they'd say they made a massive impact to customers, not necessarily, you know, and
Yeah,
in turn that makes a massive difference to the organisation. But actually, it's made a massive difference to customers. Customers can access support and help, and we're targeting the ones that need it the most. So for me, that's a win-win all day long, and that shows by people not leaving, that wanting to stay with us, and actually, it's, you know, satisfaction's increased slightly. If we can maintain that momentum, then that's a win-win, and it's customer feedback's really important, not necessarily about staff.
Yeah, and
Staff
those
love
tailored
the role of knocking on doors, talking to people. That localised surgery is really important. That face-to-face has got to be there. It's not a computer says, you know, everything. It's, you know, there's got to be a human behind that, but doing it in the balance of being efficient as well.
No, fantastic. And I guess what you're saying is the automation's allowed you to get more
Correct.
capacity to deliver those kind of tailored services and that kind of more in-depth kind of true tenant engagement. Is there anything to add from Dean or Chris on that, in terms of how your team have felt about it?
Yeah, from our perspective, like, it's been, I suppose, not to over-exaggerate, but it has genuinely been revolutionary, really, because it's allowed, as we say, like local government officers, as we say, you know, it allows them to do what they actually joined the business to do, which is to engage with residents and to make sure that they're speaking and supporting and helping wherever possible.
Yeah.
And I think really, so being able to kind of, you know, being able to do that more than actually just stuck behind a spreadsheet or stuck behind a system is, you know, it's absolutely integral. You know, I think it's, and I guess a big thing for us is we have a high staff turnover in the income side, and I think that's probably fairly, maybe it's relatively standard in your areas, I'm not too sure, but we have a lot of staff that come and go. So having a system in place where staff can come in and actually kind of very, very quickly hit the ground running is absolutely fantastic. So I think the feedback from my staff has consistently throughout this has been very, very positive. So.
I mean, I'll come in on that because actually that's a different experience to us, whereas we've got really good staff retention, good, and really good staff satisfaction in terms of how they're feeling, because actually they're feeling that they're making a real difference. Sustaining tenancies and not having evictions is a real driver for success and gives proper good job satisfaction. So but we don't have a high turnover. It's been a really steady retention. Sorry, Chris.
Good, I'll see if we can poach some of your staff.
Similar to us, to be honest, we don't have a very high turnover. Good colleague engagement scores. I think, you know, our staff would feedback positively on the transformations that we've made within the organisation. I think, you know, not that we ever engineered it this way, but it hit at the time the cost of living crisis hit. So, you know, all the pressures that were on us organisationally as staff members as well, because, you know, they're impacted by this, but most importantly our customers. Actually, that gave them that capacity to go, we can pull on different, we can work with partners, we can actually support you through this process rather than worrying about what the bots are doing.
No, that's really interesting, thank you. I think we've talked about the benefits and the impact, which is fantastic. Well, obviously, you know, people don't just agree to these things. What risks did you consider when you were thinking about automation? And what advice would you give everybody else if they wanted to move it forward and kind of complement their teams in that way?
I think I'm happy to go first. I think with that, again, it goes back to what Janette said earlier, which is basically, I think it's about being bold in this space. And obviously, the rules are the rules. We all have to play within them. We can't go breaking them. But I think all too often, I've often heard people just use the sort of rules as an excuse for being creative or being innovative in that space. And I think you do need to be, definitely you need to be bold. You definitely need to make sure that you exhaust everything, obviously again, within the rules, but you need to make sure that you're pushing things to the limit, because I think that's where it's on that knife edge, in my opinion, is where people can be at their most creative. And again, it goes back to some stuff that we mentioned really, is that a way of kind of, you know, leveling out or kind of taking away any risks is making sure that people they can see the success of it. So they can actually see that you're not just talking about this kind of magical kind of automation that could work or could deliver results, but have them involved in the testing earlier on and have that clear communication consistently. And, you know, we've been very lucky, to be fair, with Mobysoft. You know, we've made sure that all the way through that journey, there's always been somebody dedicated there to take the staff through that and kind of hold their hand and kind of, again, talking about that vision piece, really bringing it to life consistently from the testing stage right through till we go live. And I think that's made like a hell of a difference. It really has done. So, you know, that would be one thing I would say. And but yeah, I definitely couldn't underemphasize the fact of just be adventurous in that space. Really, don't let the framework cloud your creativity.
No.
That's a good one.
I'd agree. I think reality is you've got to take a little bit of a leap of faith,
Yeah.
because for me, technology isn't about efficiency saving. It's not about, now you may get efficiency savings bonus, but when you get a business case saved, if you're saying you're going to get, you're going to save 100, 200, half a million, whatever that may be,
Yeah.
actually there's a risk,
Yeah.
because this isn't, if you're working your business cases on efficiency savings alone, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Definitely.
What you need to be doing it for, and take that leap of faith and actually go, do you know what, board? You might not get return on investment on this, but actually the benefit that it's going to provide will serve us in good stead, not just tomorrow, but in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
And it's engaging them and letting them have that leap of faith with you
Yeah.
to grant you to run off with it, and realising that they're probably not going to get return on it.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I got really, that's really quite good in terms of what you've said, because that actually resonates really well. I mean, for us, in terms of managing risk, it isn't about just software, it's not about technology, it's about process, it's about people. You've got to manage all of those in terms of risk going forward. And when and when you're doing something with significant change, and it is significant change, then that leap of faith is really important. And what you've got to do, as long as you've got the parameters and you're managing that risk, then I think, and that control, and the benefits will outweigh any of them risks. And actually for us, like I say, a decade in automation, and it still does.
No, fantastic. Final question, and then I'll ask anybody else if they've got any questions for us. But if you wanted to give one, snippet of advice, if anybody's thinking about doing it, just in a couple of words, what would you say?
So from my side, I guess probably repeating myself a wee bit, but don't be afraid to do it. Don't be afraid to test it. Embrace it, but just do it in bite size. As I said, it doesn't need to be big bang. There's lots of opportunities to kind of evaluate the success based on the smaller pilots. So that'll be it. Just kind of don't bite off more than you can chew, and just make sure you bring it to life then for your team, and it'll resonate. It'll it's the spark that'll kind of light the fire, really. So.
And that fire is really important, because actually what it does is lead you on to other things. So like I say, we've built in-house things around predictive analysis on tenancy turnover and things that will fail. It's given us that confidence to try other things as well.
Fantastic.
So once you start on that journey, it's a continuous journey.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, completely agree. If we don't do this as a set, our customers expect us to be innovating.
Yeah.
If we don't do this, we're going to get left behind, and that, with all the financial pressures that we're under organisationally and across the sector at the moment, that's really risky. So we've got to step into this, and we've got to step into it with that leap of faith.
Yep.
But realising if we don't, we're going to get left behind, and that could be catastrophic down the line.
Yeah. Thank you. So, has anyone got any questions for our panel today? Yeah.
Building on the advice, we have a terrible silo mentality within our organisation. Housing is sidelined. I work in IT. I'm specifically housing IT. We have no joined up working between, for example, the customer service team that deal with all of the council. But if it's housing, we're just putting them through to take it to the call centre and shuffling off to housing. There isn't any joined up working, even within the housing team itself. We have no proper integration. The leap of faith, I'm sitting in my office sometimes going, why can't we just do this? I'm fascinated by your comment about the surveys.
Yeah.
Love to do that, but we will go, oh no, it's too much work, we can't deal with all of that. And it's like, if someone responds to were you satisfied, yes, no, yes, leave it alone, fine. Simple automation deals with it, good KPIs, and the negatives you pick up on and do the callback.
Yeah.
We won't embrace that. So what advice can you give for us to do this joined up work?
I think from my own personal experience with that, there was two kind of massive culture shifts which we had to make. Was one which was actually moving away from the contact centre, because all of our calls used to, before I joined the business, which was 6.5 years ago, everything went through to the contact centre. And what happened was basically, and this is a personal experience, it's not the case for all contact centres or anything like that, but it was, customers ended up getting passed from pillar to post. And they were the most simple questions that were getting asked, which we had staff that had all the skill set there to respond to it straight off the bat. So that immediately was something where I was like, well, actually, we're moving away from that. So that was the first stage of moving away to a model of where getting the staff used to speaking to customers again, which sounds really odd. Again, they're local government officers. Why wouldn't they be speaking to residents and so forth, and other colleagues as well that want to call in looking for help or advice? And so that was stage one, basically. And then stage two was where we were then saying, well, actually, we need to measure the quality of this. And like every business, there's some very good staff and there's some not so very good staff. So it was all about then, obviously, how do we kind of measure that? And that was where we were using the combination of the tech service that were going out. And it was, don't get me wrong, initially it was heavy lifting. So it was very much where we were scraping data off like an old telephone platform that we had. We had to upload that into another piece of software and manually get them out. But it was all about kind of, again, going back to it, like it was all about that initial sort of leap of faith, you know, getting confidence in there that we actually were starting to get feedback from the customers, and staff could see it. So literally within the space of a week or two, we were able to see actually getting feedback there. We can say to staff, listen, and it wasn't just about kind of berating staff or looking at the negatives. Actually, there's some amazing stuff that was just completely flying under the radar that we just weren't seeing. So it was all about kind of just, I think sometimes you just have to have that bit of accountability, and that just needs to be sort of driven across. It needs to be driven by housing, and there has to be a want as well. Because the way I look at IT, rightly or wrongly, is that they need to facilitate, obviously, our ideas and our way of working. Like, I wouldn't be putting the onuses on IT to do it. It needs to be driven by housing to sort of deliver that change.
So firstly, that point of contact is great, but we're just not prepared to do that. And the IT element is, we're putting in a new housing management system at the moment. It's an IT project. No, it isn't. It's a business change.
Absolutely, it is, yeah.
IT's a stakeholder in that, but everyone goes, it's IT, not interested, I don't do IT, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
So we have a transformation team who aren't embracing that either. They're seeing it as just shove this in. And I see the IT as being the enabler. It is a tool to help you do stuff. But everyone else goes, no, I've got to type it all in and that's the end of it. And it's just, I haven't got time to do it. It's that channel shift, not only with your interaction with staff, but with customers. Yeah. It's in the team as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't see how I can change it.
I think it's culture,
to offer
isn't
you
it?
some
It's
advice.
culture.
It's culture.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you need some leadership buy-in here,
Yeah,
frankly.
absolutely.
But if you feel that might be problematic in current climate, then my advice would be go and get a load of customer stories and throw that in front of your leadership team, or throw that in front of your board and go, this is because of us not doing whatever it is that you're doing, this is the impact on our customers. No leadership team and no board would hide from a customer story.
No.
It's got the best impact you could have.
Yeah, thanks, Lee.
It's slightly different for us as an RP because all transactions come through one point, whether it's digital, whether it's a telephone call or whatever, email or whatever. But for me, and we need to have that understanding. So we know a lot about we've got loads and loads of data about our stock. We need to so we have the same amount of information about our customers. So one version of truth. So any touch point from anybody in the organisation, whether you're a gas technician or an electrician, or whether you're an urban officer or whether you're a tenant sustainability officer, all that information goes into one place, and that gives you a full one version of the truth in terms of what's going on in that household, which allows us to do the predictive analysis. Without that, and without everybody contributing to that, you couldn't do that and be as robust.
We've got a lot of spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Yes.
Previously, I worked with other council, leasehold management and service charges calculations.
Yeah.
And sometimes I come across on the same street and not a freehold, but zero service charge, whereas the person next door has to bear the cost of full service charges. And it was kind of playing tricks. I said, how do you determine which property to get zero service charges? That will be heaven for everyone else, but not everyone can get it. So is it like putting everything in a basket and picking it, or it's a freehold? It's a little bit that I want to know.
Yeah.
And also when leasehold transfers, the property, some are already dilapidated and needs retrofits, or sometimes regeneration. I remember I handled a big regeneration scheme, the Ellsbury Estate as Southern Council, and having to work with all the other professionals like the architects, the QS, calculating the bills of quantities to apportion that to service charges, and I've done rents, and sometimes we have to do a write back.
Yeah.
I know that. So those are little like problems that you need a human factor to resolve it other than AI, because God had put all of us on a planet to work.
Yeah.
And if we're going to incorporate AI to take away the manpower, and people are still going to universities and clearing great costs and what have you, so how do we do it?
It's a big question, that, but I think
Over to you, Chris.
yeah. I'll do my very best to respond to that. I think really that there's a couple of things that play there really, which is I think first and foremost is a combination of the leases and the transfers have been sold off, and obviously what the rights and obligations are within that. I know definitely across multiple London boroughs, obviously Southwark, Lambeth, Wandsworth, the very same, Westminster, the very same as well, where there was probably a period, probably in the early 90s, mid 90s, where there was a decision made, a proactive decision was made to not charge freeholders who were getting an estate-based service, because it was just, I think there was a view that it was a bit complex to charge them. Unfortunately, in certain cases, that's led to a multitude of problems. Obviously, where some freeholders have had confirmation of where they shouldn't be getting charged in writing, and obviously there's still the existing freeholder. That confirmation has formed part of the seller's pack. So even if it's sold on, that privilege still stands. Very difficult to come back on that, to be honest with you. I know a lot of experience with Southwark firsthand, and I see the very same at Lambeth as well. So there's a unique challenge there, which is kind of, to a certain extent, is beyond the realms of obviously a digital solution. But nonetheless, what I would subscribe to is that saying that, what needs to happen is a complete review of obviously every lease, every transfer, so there's a clear understanding of those rights and obligations. And obviously there is lots of digital solutions out there that can capture and obviously auto read, and there's stuff that we're looking at the moment in Lambeth around trying to integrate a robotics piece with obviously ChatGPT, because we know that there's enough power in there, and I'm doing some further studies at the moment myself, but there's an incredible, the ability of ChatGPT cannot be underestimated. Like it's like having a couple of PhD students around you that can actually consistently give you research. It's an incredible tool.
It is.
So so I think there's lots of opportunities to try and put things right there, and I think particularly now compared to years ago, you could actually get an organisation. I could speak to you separately on that. That could actually be able to look at that and actually do a kind of scrape of all the leases to pick out the key obligations and rights on that side. That would definitely help. And I think there's a lot of things you can do as well around transparency, because obviously leaseholders do in general have a bit of a trust issue with local authorities or with respective RPs around the methodology that's adopted to apportioning service charges, whether that be major works or whether that be day-to-day annual service charges. But I think either ways is that the transparency element, I would say, is that making sure that if you've got a resident portal, I'd be making sure that we push the leases out there. So I know historically local authorities, maybe RPs would charge £30 or £50 for a stamped coloured copy. I think those days potentially are probably gone, where it's probably of greater value to the organisation to push that information out there free of charge rather than charge.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm from Epping, same as Adrian, so we definitely have a problem with the culture in the company. I've got staff, they work there for the whole life since they left sixth form or whatever they call it these days. And for me is not only the staff but the customers is the change for them. I'm thinking if we started the automation and it's gone to our customers who have never ever received a text from us or an email from us, that would be a big change for them. Even now when I ask my officers to go and visit, they're like, what? We don't do that, we send a letter, that's it. So there is a big culture change for our customers as well. How would you, or if you ever had the experience of start this kind of journey with the customers and persuade them that this is better for them, because they really do like that personal touch by how they had it for the last 25 years.
I think it's a really good point around kind of customer expectations, and I don't know if Dean, you want to pick up that in terms of managing their expectations and setting their vision.
I mean, the key to all of it is communication.
It is.
You've got to communicate. If you start sending text messages out without communicating to them that that's what's going to happen, then you are going to get a response. That's the reality of it, and it won't be a positive one probably. you've got to communicate them, you've got to lead them to water in effect. So let them know it's coming, let them know the reasons why, give them the why. That's the really important bit. We're doing this because, and demonstrate the benefits to them as a customer group. And then when they start to receive them, they'll understand the rationale behind it. But if you don't communicate it well and don't communicate it effectively, you're right, it's going to hit them cold. And that isn't going to work effectively.
And I find it really interesting, actually, because I bet you lots of your customers already get a text from Amazon or DPD or any other service providers are available. But for me, it's about making sure if they're already doing it with those, why wouldn't they want to do that transaction with you? The issue is, have you asked? And I think what you'll find is if you ask, you'll probably get a good response there. Yeah, would want to be communicating in that way. One of the surveys that we do in terms of sending out information around the transaction, whether it's repairs, gas, whether it's neighbourhood officer sign up or anything, we ask to score 1 out of 5, like Chris said. But what they also put is some information in terms of a free text. Sentiment and what you're getting back from your customers in terms of what we can share with our staff is just really, really good for staff, satisfaction, in terms of every single bit of sentiment we feed back to staff, say, this is what people have said to you. It's a real boost. People need to know they're doing a good job. Yeah. Staff need to know that, and that's what keeps your momentum. But in terms of your customers, you need to ask, because I bet, at least half will want communication in a different way at a different time of day. It doesn't always have to be at 8 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock, in the afternoon. We send communication out at 8 o'clock at night, and we get a fantastic response by text. We spend 1,500 texts out, and we get a response within 10 minutes from 1,000 customers. That's pretty good.
And I'd say that there's ways of leveraging change, just kind of picking up on what the guys are saying, as well as that. I would, depending on your area, I'd put together a small working group, and I'd make sure I'd involve the likes of your cabinet member for housing, and anybody else who has a bit of leverage within the organisations. Just do it as a small pilot. And again, picking up on what Janette's saying is that basically, you can it's so easy to do. So if you have a working group of even ideally maybe 50 residents and maybe a cabinet member and so forth, and make sure that you act upon it. So don't just obviously, if you're gonna trial out kind of texting out of any information or any prompts or nudges or whatever, and they feed back to you, the key thing there is it's fine being data rich, but you need to be common sense rich as well. You need to make sure that you're doing something with that. And I think that's a lot of organisations sit in a fantastic array of data, but they don't do a whole lot with it. So it's really about putting that, when people talk about being like data-led and being informed with data decision-making, it really is. I've seen a lot of people talk about it, but I've not seen a lot of people actually put it into practice. So I'd say from a customer perspective, they have to see that as quickly and early as possible. So if they do feedback that it's negative, you've got to be on that.
Absolutely.
You can't leave that for any length at all.
So how would you recommend? We have just done a tenant census. We have sent a survey to all of our tenants, and we've had a reasonable response. We've got about 6,000 rental properties and 1,000 leasehold.
Nice.
We've got 2,500 back. Spent tens of thousands of pounds. Got all this data, and we're not going to do anything with it.
Yeah.
We've decided we haven't got time to fit it into our legacy housing system, to load it, and then put it into our new housing system. And we can't load it into our new system once it's gone live. We can't do a data load, so that's all lost.
See, for me, that has to be I think we're probably going to say the very same thing, but that has to be your leverage. That's your baseline. So you've done the hard work. You've got your baseline now. Yeah. It's all about now what you do next. So there's got to be clearly a series of actions that come out of that. And one of those actions should definitely be, like as I was saying, do a small pilot. So if you, depending on what your satisfaction was, good, bad, and different in the middle of the road, it's this is the thing. So that probably gives you even more momentum to be able to push ahead and actually say, so what we want to do is we want to pilot it in a certain ward or a certain area, and then just bring it to life. But what I'd strongly suggest, because obviously it's, I'd strongly suggest getting a cabinet member for housing involved to give you that leverage, because there's undoubtedly, I'm sure it must be a KPI for Epping as well, like customer satisfaction. I don't know if you split out leaseholder and tenant, I'm not too sure, but it's either ways. it's an amazing opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I can't see the point in sending anything out to a customer where it comes back, you don't do anything with it. You know, you're asking, you've got rich insight information, and if you're doing that, it's actually quite criminal. What's the point? If I got one of them from your organisation, I'd rip it up because you're not doing anything with it, because I've already told you, 2 years before. It's so frustrating for customers, and that's the problem now. Really frustrating for customers. They tell us things time and time again, and we don't do anything about it. That's not acceptable anymore.
And that's what
Thanks.
we are with things like we're writing to deceased tenants.
That's just
and
no,
they
that
fill
yeah.
form, still not done anything.
Yeah.
Shameful. Sorry, that's quite shameful.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's lots of people from Mobysoft here who's going to talk to you a little bit about automation, about AI, and how we're using that to really shape and enhance customer experiences, creating those capacities and making sure that we're protecting really quality services. I'm sure Dean, Janette and Chris will hang about if you've got more questions, but they probably need a drink and a little lie down now. So they've done us a massive favour here. So if I give them a round of applause to say thank you for our panellists today. Thank you. And like I said, if you have got any other questions, do find us. We'll be here for a little bit longer.
Thanks
very
everybody.
much.
Thank you.